In this edition of RPP News, a call to end violence against women. The metro versus regional debate continues, and we lead the way in healthy ageing. Hello, I'm Catie Sharp. Welcome to the latest edition of RPP News, bringing you stories from across Frankston and the Mornington Peninsula. The Mornington Peninsula Crime Investigation Unit is looking into a spike in criminal activity in the Mount Eliza area. Police are investigating after a spate of crimes in and around Koala Crescent, Barton Drive, Walkers Road and Kunyong Road in Mount Eliza. The petty criminal activity peaked in late February and has been attributed to delinquent teenagers and beach party goers. Reports indicate they stole vehicles, took belongings from cars, attempted breaking and entry, and were responsible for an assault. Residents are encouraged to contact Mornington Police or Crime Stoppers if they know anything or see anything suspicious. Senator Jenny McAllister, the Shadow Assistant Minister for the Prevention of Family Violence, visited the Dunkley electorate on Friday and met with local member Peter Murphy. Together they held a round table with some of Frankston's domestic violence workers. RPP spoke to Senator McAllister and Ms Murphy after the event.
We've just held a round table here in my electorate office with a number of the amazing local service providers who are on the ground every day helping women and children who have been exposed to and experienced domestic violence. And we got a lot of messages, didn't we, Jenny? But one of them was the need for a federal government that will invest in frontline services and will support and enable local groups to come together to have local initiatives and local responses. And we know that's what we're great at in Frankston, and we know that's what we need more of to deal with some of the issues that existed pre-pandemic. But after the pandemic, we know that domestic and family violence has been a growing issue. So thank you very much, Jenny, for coming today. And I know you've got some exciting news about just one of the terrific things that a federal Labor government would do if we were to form government after the election.
If we're elected, we will provide resources to put another 500 workers in place to support services like this. What it will mean around here is that there'll be an extra 7 people on the ground, and we know from talking to workers that that means that they can help probably another 580 women and children a year. That's actually a really significant investment. It'll also let these services grow the skills that they need to deal with the cases they see, which they tell us are significantly more complex and growing in frequency. Every time I come here, I learn a little bit more about how the reforms that are being progressed are helping services to work together more effectively, and that really seems to be the key. That was the key message we got out of this morning's roundtable.
It's not a short-term fix to change a deeply ingrained culture. We know that, and it was a message from the people that we met with this morning who are working on the ground. It takes not just a financial investment, but an investment of time and will and dedication to say it's a generational change. It can't be done in 6 months, can't be done in 3 years, but we have to start now.
This followed last Sunday's March for Justice, which flagged violence against women. The event marked a year since the Snap March that sparked amid news of systemic sexual assault and harassment at Parliament House. Here in Rosebud, the March for Mornington travelled along the Rosebud foreshore, led by 2 of the Shire's councillors, Sarah Race and Kerry McCafferty. Stories were shared, poetry was slammed, and local singer-songwriters provided entertainment. The Committee for Mornington Peninsula says its detailed study of the region's designation as a Metro LGA will be released by the end of the month. A debate has been raging since COVID lockdowns began, which is when many locals realised the Shire was classified as part of Metro Melbourne rather than regional. Committee President Shannon Smith told RPP the Peninsula's current Metro designation has some very serious impacts on the community.
Our businesses are paying, more taxes, we're paying more stamp duty, metropolitan planning levy we're paying, and, we're paying all of these different fees. Our residents are also contributing with all of their taxes, and we're just not getting that back to our peninsula. And there's a lot of people that believe that the peninsula, they think of it as I think they may only think of us as maybe it's Portsea. They don't realise there are a lot of areas that do need some additional support.
Frankston and the Peninsula are leading the way when it comes to researching ageing. Representatives from the Peninsula Health and Monash University were joined by the Minister for Health and Aged Care, Greg Hunt, for the official opening of the Wangaratta National Centre for Healthy Ageing at Frankston Hospital this week.
Yes, so we would have a range of people going through postgraduate programs, training and research, mentoring through higher level research and teaching. So there's a whole level of educational opportunities and training that's available here. We're looking at 3 components. We call them aging well. Aging well is to allow people to age well in their own environments successfully. Then there is the complexity of aging. So when people start to develop diseases and accumulate problems, how do we help them navigate the complexity of those problems? And finally, healthcare innovation is an important part of what we're going to do. So healthcare innovation is about making sure the systems that we have in place, when they really need the systems, are good and sound and fit for purpose.
Minister Hunt shared the ambitions of the $32 million research facility.
Dementia care, healthy ageing, mental health for our seniors, focus on chronic diseases, whether it's cardiac, whether it is neurodegenerative, whether it is oncology related. All of these things come out of a centre with national leadership, which will attract research, but translate research. The real purpose of all of this is to translate. So somebody living in Hastings or Gladstone, somebody living in Albany or Frankston will benefit from this research.
In February of this year, the koala was listed as an endangered species across most of Australia's east coast after a dramatic decline in numbers. RPP's Charlotte Fields spoke to the Mornington Peninsula Koala Conservation Group about why this has happened and what it means for our local koalas.
Since 2019, approximately 60,000 koalas nationwide have been injured, killed or generally affected. It's been predicted by 2050 they will be extinct. Preservation tactics have already commenced on the Mornington Peninsula, with it being requested for locals to start planting trees, specifically manna gum, swamp gum and narrowleaf peppermint. Therefore, koalas will have areas to live and places to move. The Mornington Peninsula Koala Restoration Group have already commenced a restoration project by planting 1,600 trees, which are being monitored for a new koala habitat. Dirk Jansen has the details.
This winter we want to plant 20,000 trees on the Mornington Peninsula. Unfortunately, trees take time to grow, so our project has been running now for about 2 years. The koala trees generally tend to take about 5 years, 3 to 5 years to be of interest to a koala, or to be tall enough that a koala can use the trees. So we're hoping that we can make a difference over the next 5 to 10 years. So the number one issue why koalas are declining in general is their loss of habitat. On the Mornington Peninsula, it's more than 70% of habitat is on private property, and we have less than 30% tree canopy cover left. So the number one thing we need to do is protect habitat and increase it. The easiest thing to do is donate or just become a member of our group and get involved. We've got many other activities if you're not able to do sort of on-ground work or active work, but also just report koala sightings to us, raise awareness with neighbours and friends, because ultimately this will be a community effort. One of the things that we do is just raise awareness wherever we possibly can. Donating is good, obviously, because it costs us about $4 to plant a tree, and if you can imagine that we're planting 20,000 trees this winter, that's a lot of money that we need to raise every year. So definitely donations are always welcome as well.
And the Studio Sorrento Photography Group is holding an exhibition on the long weekend in March, at which photographers from across the peninsula are invited to participate. In addition, they are running a photo competition of images of Sorrento Main Street. The competition will be judged at the exhibition, and the winner will receive $50 worth of printing. To enter or to learn more about the exhibition, visit the group at the Sorrento Activity Centre. After the break, we go to David Robertson with this month's Bendigo Bank Market Update.
Everyone knows Australia has 4 big banks. But there's another big bank snapping at their heels. It's been around for over 160 years, has 1.9 million customers nationwide who bank in branch, online or with their mobile app, and is regularly voted one of Australia's most trusted brands. Who is this bank that has everyone's attention? Welcome to Bendigo Bank, the better big bank.
Established in 1988, Progress Signs has been servicing the local community for 30 years. Located on the Mornington Peninsula, they are the #1 destination for all your signage needs, specialising in a variety of signage from vehicles to shop fronts, occasional and corporate events, short-term, long-term and everything in between. If it's signs you need, be it large or small, Progress Signs is the place to call. Available 24/7 at progress-signs.com.au or call the team on 5975 9188. Thinking signs? Think Progress Signs, a station sponsor.
The invasion of Ukraine naturally has markets on edge and raises questions about the impacts here and around the world. Our updated thoughts on the outlook and the implications for interest rates. The tragic human toll in Ukraine is of course the primary concern, and our thoughts are with those caught in the conflict. But beyond Europe, the markets are trying to get a sense of the impact of the invasion on energy and commodity prices, on supply chain constraints, and on confidence and demand. The sanctions announced this week, including removing a range of Russian banks from access to SWIFT, have initially seen a 24% fall in the value of the Russian ruble, and Russia's central bank has doubled interest rates to 20%. So questions around default risk on this sovereign debt have the markets considering the extent of Russian exposures by global investors. The sanctions so far have centred on financial and technological exclusions, but not on energy exports. However, the price of oil is still elevated and volatile. It's through oil and other energy prices that the impact on economies around the world will be most tangible. So, for major advanced economies, the likelihood that energy prices will remain higher for longer means inflationary pressures becoming more persistent. Similarly, a range of commodities, including some agricultural and metal commodity prices, are likely to remain firm, which should help with Australian exports and may see our inflation rate continue to surprise the RBA on the upside. The geopolitical instability clearly is a driver of uncertainty across the board. However, given it's expected to add to inflation, and given our limited trade relationship with the region, the invasion is not expected to defer the first RBA rate hike later this year, which we still expect around August, after 2 more reads on the Consumer Price Index. Despite Delta and Omicron disruptions, and in advance of consumer confidence being tested by events overseas and our own weather-related tragedies currently unfolding, household demand, seen via retail activity, has remained as resilient as ever, up 6.5% year on year and around 17% above pre-pandemic levels. Retail sales were up in each state and territory. So, with our international borders reopened and a range of pandemic restrictions eased, the outlook is still positive, which should ultimately feed into a further 5% of GDP growth this year, on top of the strong read for 2021 GDP released today. Growth should be further supported by tight labour markets, a very healthy pipeline of infrastructure projects around the country, and more stimulus expected in the early federal budget on March 29th. But with the challenge of rising interest rates the primary headwind. The Aussie dollar will be a good barometer of this progress, including weighing up the downside risks on sentiment from the war in Ukraine and rising energy prices. But while volatility on the market seems inevitable, for Australia, we may see a lower peak in official interest rates once the RBA start their path to a more neutral cash rate than the market is currently projecting. So, assuming no escalation of the war outside of Ukraine and no lasting impact on global energy supply, central banks around the world are still expected to continue to steadily lift interest rates back towards more neutral settings, including the Bank of Canada this week and the US Federal Reserve later in March. And lastly, Australian property prices continue to rise in February, up 0.6% for the month and 1.6% in regional Australia. But Sydney prices ease back 0.1%, perhaps a sign that rate hikes later in the year will see much more modest increases for the rest of 2022 and perhaps modest falls in 2023. And that's the market update from Bendigo Bank.
Now to Patricia with the coming week's weather report.
From Nicolas at the McClellan Gallery last week to St. Andrew's Beach today. Hello, I'm Patricia and welcome to this week's RPP Mornington Peninsula 7-day weather report. We are down here today to support the local Ninch Fest, which is on as we speak and will continue tomorrow. The Ninch Fest is a community-focused musical festival held at the beautiful St. Andrew's Beach Recreation Club. This is their 5th year of the festival, which has now become an annual event. Well, it's overcast, but still very humid. What does the week ahead have in store for us? Let's unpack this week's weather and break it down. Tomorrow, Saturday the 4th of March, will be a cloudy, wet day. So if you are going down to the Ninch Fest, it might be best to take some wet weather gear. We should reach a top of 23 with a low of 17. The UV index will reach a very high level of 9 tomorrow and Sunday, so please take sun care. Sunday sees the rain backing off. However, there remains a 50% chance of rain across the peninsula. We should see a high of 23 and a low of 17. Monday sees another cloudy day with a 30% chance of rain. We should experience an expected high of 23 and a low of 15. Tuesday remains the same as Monday with a 30% chance of rain. We should experience an expected high of 22 and a low of 15. Wednesday, the 9th of March, sees the sun returning through partly cloudy skies, bringing a high of 23 and a low of 14. Thursday brings another partly cloudy day. We should see a top of 24 and another low of 14. And lastly, Friday should also be another partly cloudy day with a 14% chance of rain. We should reach a high of 24 and a low of 12. Well, that's all for this week. Don't forget the Ninch Fest number 5 tonight till 10 p.m. and tomorrow starting from 10:30 a.m. There is an amazing lineup of local bands this year, with the bars and food vans serving delicious local alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages and a great range of tasty foods at reasonable prices. As always, I wish you all the very best week, and remember to take good care of yourselves and of each other.
And to our surf guru Muzz with the Surf Report.
Hey guys, it's Muzz here, back for this week's Mornington Peninsula Surf Report. Finally the wind, we've got a little bit more northeast in the easterly, but it's only a slight reprieve. Should get a bit of a swell Saturday, but not massive, probably just going to make the beach breaks pretty solid with the conditions. There should be 1 or 2 days where we will get a northeasterly offshore conditions, but not the whole day, and then midway through next week, swell will pick up, but I think there might be a wind coming from the west, maybe one of those days. So the slim chance, it still isn't where it should be at the start of autumn now that summer's over, but as soon as the next big fronts come through, clear all this easterly humidity and lows off the east coast, it might start to change for the better. So if not, see you next week and enjoy.
And that's all from our team here at RPP News, serving the community with stories that matter to you. Keep watching and do tell your friends. Bringing you the news from coast to coast across Frankston and the Mornington Peninsula, I'm Catie Sharp. See you for the next edition.